Forsaken in the wilderness. The prairie stretched endlessly, an ocean of tall, whispering grass that swayed beneath a merciless sun. Clara Whitfield stood alone in that vast emptiness, her pale hands gripping the smooth handle of her walking stick. The familiar murmur of wagon wheels and neighing horses had faded hours ago, leaving behind only silence. Silence, and the hollow ache of betrayal. She could not see the empty horizon, nor the dust that had long settled from the departing caravan, but she could feel the absence like a wound. The air tasted dry, her lips cracked from thirst, and her throat tightened with both fear and disbelief. Samuel, her husband, had sworn never to leave her, and yet he had gone, abandoning her as one might discard a burden too heavy to carry. Clara's blindness had always been a shadow over their marriage. Samuel had once spoken tender words in her presence, guiding her hand across the threshold of their first cabin, promising her safety in every storm. But the man she had married grew harder with time, more distant with each mile the settlers pressed westward. To him, land and progress mattered more than compassion. When hardship struck, she had become, in his eyes, a liability. Now she stood alone, every breath filled with the dread of predators, hunger, and thirst. A crow cried overhead, and Clara flinched at the sound. The prairie seemed alive with dangers she could not name. She tried to walk forward, tapping the ground before her, but the earth tilted strangely, and her foot caught against a stone. She stumbled, landing hard on her knees, dust clinging to her dress. Her heart pounded as she whispered, "Samuel, please." The name vanished into the emptiness, answered only by the sigh of the wind. Tears stung her eyes, though she had long learned to weep in silence. It was not the wilderness she feared most, but the certainty that her own husband had chosen this fate for her. To be blind was one thing, to be unwanted was another. Time passed, minutes or hours, she could not know. The sun lowered, and with it, her strength. Her body shook with exhaustion as she sank against a fallen log, the wood rough beneath her fingers. Her mind drifted to memories of her sister Miriam, who had once told her, "You deserve to be cherished, not simply carried along." At the time, Clara had dismissed it as jealousy. Now, those words pressed heavily upon her soul. She tilted her face skyward, praying for guidance, when a rustle stirred the grass. Her breath caught. Instinct screamed that something, or someone, was near. She clutched her stick with trembling hands, ready to swing blindly. "Do not fear," a voice said, low and steady, carrying the rhythm of calm water. Clara froze. The voice was unfamiliar, yet unlike Samuel's bark or the caravan men's dismissive tones, it held patience. The sound of footsteps drew closer, light but deliberate. "Who's there?" Clara asked, her voice thin. "I'm Nokoni," the man replied. "You are alone. Why?" She swallowed hard. "My people, they left me." Her throat burned with shame as she spoke the words aloud. There was a pause, then the sound of fabric shifting as he crouched near. She could sense his presence in the way the air shifted, warmer, steady. "They should not have done this," he said firmly. Clara trembled. "You don't understand." I see," Nokoni interrupted gently. "Not with your eyes, perhaps, but I see." His words startled her. She had grown accustomed to pity or scorn, never recognition. For a moment, she did not know what to say. Her fingers brushed the ground, searching for an anchor, but the only anchor was the steady cadence of his voice. "Come," he said at last. "The night will be cold. I will guide you." Clara hesitated, torn between fear of the unknown and the desperation to survive. Samuel's betrayal rang in her mind, his choice to cast her aside. In her most vulnerable hour, a stranger extended his hand. She lifted her face toward him. "Can I trust you?" Nokoni's reply came without hesitation. "Yes, my people do not abandon." The conviction in his tone struck something deep within her. Slowly, Clara reached forward. Her hand brushed his, calloused and warm, and he closed his fingers gently around hers. In that moment, the fear that had gripped her heart loosened, replaced by an unfamiliar sensation, safety. As he led her forward, step by step through the tall grass. Clara's mind swirled with conflicting emotions. Grief for Samuel's betrayal, relief at not being alone, and something else, something she dared not yet name. A fragile seed of trust planted in the most barren of circumstances. Behind them, the prairie fell silent again, as if sealing away the past. Ahead lay uncertainty, but for the first time since the caravan's departure, Clara's steps carried hope. A new kind of trust. The prairie changed beneath Nokoni's guidance. Clara, leaning lightly on his arm, discovered a world she had never known. He moved with quiet assurance, every step measured, every pause purposeful. Where Samuel had tugged her along impatiently, Nokoni let her match his pace, stopping when she stumbled, steadying her when the ground dipped. Each small gesture of patience unsettled her heart more than she wished to admit. "Listen," Nokoni said one morning as the wind brushed over the grass. "The meadowlark sings." Clara tilted her head, straining. A trill rose above the rustle of leaves, bright and layered. She smiled faintly. "I've heard it before, but I never knew its name." "You will know many things," Nokoni replied. "Not with eyes, but with the spirit." His words lingered long after the bird's song faded. Samuel had once laughed at her attempts to describe the world through touch or sound. A blind woman shouldn't waste time pretending, he had told her coldly. That memory struck now like a bruise pressed too hard. As the days passed, Nokoni taught her to use her senses differently. He placed wild herbs in her hand, guiding her fingers over their shapes and urging her to breathe in their scents. He showed her how the ground softened near a stream, how the air cooled under trees, how the rhythm of the wind could signal open plains or sheltered valleys. Clara felt as if the world had widened around her. Yet it was not the lessons alone that unsettled her. It was the tenderness with which he offered them. In quiet moments by the fire, they spoke of their lives. Clara shared fragments of her childhood, her sister Miriam's protective presence, her own longing for freedom. Hesitantly, she confessed more. Samuel's harsh words, the growing distance between them, the way she had been treated as an obligation rather than a partner. Each admission left her feeling both lighter and more exposed. Nokoni listened without judgment. When she faltered, he would murmur, "You are stronger than you know." The simplicity of the phrase pierced her more deeply than Samuel's empty vows ever had. One evening, as dusk settled and the fire cast soft shadows, Clara reached for the ground beside her and brushed against Nokoni's hand. She meant only to steady herself, yet the touch lingered. His skin was rough, the hand of one who worked with earth and bow, yet the warmth radiating through her fingers filled her with a dangerous comfort. She withdrew quickly, heart pounding, ashamed at how her breath had quickened. Nokoni, however, said nothing. His silence was neither awkward nor condemning. It carried patience, as though he understood something she herself could not yet admit. That night, Clara lay awake on her bed of woven grasses, Samuel's face haunting her mind. She remembered how he once held her on their wedding day. His kiss famed but brief, already distracted by the prospects of land and wealth. Some way along the journey west, his affection had withered, replaced by irritation at her limitations. "You slow us down," he had said more than once. Now she could not shake the image of his back as he walked away with the caravan, choosing progress over her. Beside that memory, another rose, Nokoni's voice, steady and gentle. "My people do not abandon." The words struck her again, both as a balm and a danger. What was it she felt? Gratitude? Or something deeper? The question gnawed at her until dawn. The following day, Clara stumbled on uneven ground, nearly falling. Nokoni caught her swiftly, his arm firm around her waist. For a suspended heartbeat, she leaned into him, her cheek grazing the rough fabric of his shirt. Her breath faltered, and she wished, just for that moment, that the world might stop turning. She pulled away too quickly, muttering an apology. But Nokoni only said, "Do not fear leaning. It is no weakness." His word carried more weight than he intended. Clara felt heat rush to her cheeks. To lean on him was safety, yes, but was also temptation. Each day brought her closer to admitting what she should not. That in his presence, she felt seen, desired, and alive. As night fell once more, Clara turned her face toward the stars she could not see. In the silence, she whispered into the darkness, "Samuel, why was I not enough?" No answer came. But across the fire, Nokoni stirred, as though he had heard her unspoken grief. Their bond deepened in the quiet, a bond that stretched dangerously close to a boundary neither dared to cross. And yet, Clara knew, something within her had already shifted. What began as survival had grown into something else, something she could neither name nor deny. Crossing the line, the storm announced itself with a shiver in the wind. Clara felt it before she heard the rolling thunder, the air heavy with the metallic scent of rain. Nokoni quickened his pace, guiding her toward shelter, his hand steady around hers. The sky split with lightning, and soon the downpour came, relentless and cold. They found refuge beneath a cluster of low cliffs where rock jutted outward to form a shallow cave. The rain hammered the earth outside, each drop echoing like a drum. Clara sank onto the ground, shivering, her dress clinging to her skin. Nokoni knelt beside her, gathering dry grasses into a bundle and coaxing a flame from flint and steel. When the fire caught, its glow softened the hard stone walls, casting their shadows close together. Clara stretched her hands toward the warmth, though her heart beat faster than the storm itself. The intimacy of the small space unsettled her. Every movement, every breath felt amplified, shared between them. She could not see Nokoni's face, yet she could sense his nearness as though the darkness itself whispered of him. "Does the storm frighten you?" he asked quietly. "No," she answered, though her voice trembled. "Not the storm." Nokoni was silent, but she knew he understood. It was not thunder that unsettled her, but the pull between them, an invisible current that drew her closer even as her conscience screamed to hold back. The fire crackled, filling the silence. Clara's mind betrayed her, conjuring Samuel's absence. She remembered his indifference, the sharpness of his tone, the way his eyes had grown colder with each mile of their journey. He had not touched her tenderly in months, not looked at her as though she were anything but an inconvenience. And now, across from her, sat a man who had risked his strength to protect her, who guided her gently as if she were not a burden but a partner. Samuel would never have waited out a storm like this, Clara murmured before she could stop herself. He would have left me behind, again. Nokoni shifted closer. Then he is blind, not you. The words pierced her, cutting through years of doubt. She turned her face toward him, her lips parting though no reply came. Instead, the silence grew charged, heavy with all that had gone unsaid between them. Clara felt her hand move almost against her will, reaching across the space between them. Her fingertips brushed Nokoni's jaw, rough with stubble. He did not flinch. Instead, he leaned into her touch, his breath warm against her wrist. Her heart thundered louder than the storm. "This is wrong," she whispered, though her hand did not fall away. "It is only truth," Nokoni said. "Two hearts that should not be apart." The words left her trembling. She wanted to deny them, to retreat into duty, but Samuel's betrayal echoed louder in her memory than any vow she had ever spoken. For the first time, she wondered if loyalty to a man who had discarded her was not a virtue, but a chain. The fire snapped, and in that sound, restraint crumbled. Nokoni's hand found hers, strong yet tender, and he drew her closer. She did not resist. Her lips brushed his, tentative at first, then deepened as longing overcame fear. The kiss carried both desperation and relief, as though they had been circling this moment since the day he first found her in the grass. When they parted, Clara pressed her forehead to his chest, tears slipping free. "What have I done?" she whispered. "You have remembered you are alive," Nokoni replied, his voice low, steady. The storm outside raged on, but within the cave, Clara felt only the storm of her own heart. Shame warred with longing, guilt with desire. She had crossed a boundary she could never erase. Yet in that forbidden act, she had felt cherished, something Samuel had denied her long ago. For the rest of the night, she lay near Nokoni, their closeness unspoken but undeniable. The fire dimmed, and still she could not sleep. Every breath reminded her of the choice she had made, the line she had stepped over, the secret she would now carry. By dawn, the storm had passed. The air smelled of wet earth, clean and new, but Clara felt the weight of her sin pressing heavier than the soaked grass outside. As Nokoni rose and offered his hand to guide her onward, Clara took it without hesitation. Yet within her heart, a question burned. Could she ever return to the life she had known, now that she had tasted what it meant to be seen and loved? The price of betrayal. The prairie awoke with silence after the storm, the ground softened by rain, the air sharp with renewal. Clara walked beside Nokoni, her hand steady in his, though her heart was anything but calm. Each step reminded her of the kiss, of the firelit moment that had altered her life. She carried both warmth and weight within her chest, desire and guilt entwined like inseparable vines. For a time, the wilderness belonged only to them. But as the sun climbed, Clara heard something that made her freeze, the faint rumble of wheels and the neighing of horses. Her pulse quickened, dread and relief colliding in her veins. Nokoni tightened his grip gently. "Your people return," he said, his voice low. Her throat constricted. She had imagined Samuel many nights, but she had not imagined facing him with this secret burning inside her. The caravan's approach grew louder, voices carried on the wind, and soon figures emerged from the horizon. "Clara!" A familiar voice rang out, sharp, commanding. Samuel's. Clara's knees weakened. She had longed for his protection once, longed to hear her name spoken with care. Now it sounded like a chain-pulling taut. Samuel dismounted swiftly, striding toward her. He seized her arm without pause, his fingers biting into her sleeve. "You're alive," he said, but the words were flat, more accusation than relief. His eyes swept over Nokoni with suspicion. And with him, Clara flinched. "Samuel, do you know what danger you've put us in?" Samuel snapped, wandering off, consorting with. She did not wonder. Nokoni interrupted, his voice firm. She was left. The truth hung heavy. Clara's lips parted, but Samuel's glare silenced her. Shame coursed through her, though she knew it was not her guilt that weighed most heavily. It was his. Yet she had no words sharp enough to cut through the wall of his pride. Nokoni released her hand, though not before letting his thumb graze her palm in a fleeting, secret farewell. The touch was enough to ignite the ache in her chest all over again. "Go back to your people," Samuel ordered Nokoni, his tone dismissive. "You have done enough." Nokoni did not move at once. His gaze lingered on Clara, steady and unashamed. "Remember," he said softly, words meant only for her. "You are not a burden. You are light." Clara's breath caught, but Samuel dragged her toward the wagon, muttering of wasted time and lost progress. She stumbled after him, heart breaking with every step that carried her farther from Nokoni. The caravan bustled with activity, voices scolding, hands tugging at supplies, eyes casting judgment. To them, Clara was a wife reclaimed, a duty returned to its rightful place. No one asked how she had survived or who had saved her. No one saw the storm within her. That night, as the campfire burned low, Samuel lay beside her in their wagon. He did not reach for her, did not ask of her days alone, did not speak of the man who had kept her alive. His breathing soon deepened with sleep, while Clara lay rigid, her eyes wet with silent tears. In the darkness, her thoughts strayed back to Nokoni, the steadiness of his hand, the gentleness in his voice, the truth in his eyes. With him, she had felt alive, cherished, seen. With Samuel, she felt the weight of chains, bound to vows he had already broken the moment he abandoned her. Clara turned her face to the canvas wall, whispering into the night where no one could hear. "Forgive me." She did not know to whom the words were spoken. Samuel, herself, or the man she had left behind. Perhaps all three. The fire outside crackled, echoing faintly of another fire, another night, another choice she could not undo. She closed her eyes, her heart heavy with two truths. She had betrayed her marriage, and yet, in doing so, she had discovered what it meant to be loved. That paradox would be her burden and her secret, carried like a hidden scar beneath her skin. When dawn rose, The caravan prepared to move again. Samuel barked orders, impatient to press westward. Clara climbed into the wagon, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Outwardly, she was the obedient wife, reclaimed and returned. Inwardly, she was divided, half chained to duty, half bound to a memory that would never fade. As the wheels creaked forward and the prairie stretched once more before them, Clara tilted her head toward the wind. Somewhere beyond the horizon, Nokoni walked among his people. She could not follow, but neither could she forget. His words echoed still. "You are not a burden. You are light." And though she rode beside her husband, Clara knew the truth. Her heart would forever belong to another.